This time on Video Game Tango, KOTOR and LOTR are getting pushed back. Josh and Nick have new games on the horizon, and World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King Classic has a release date. Could this mean trouble for Dragonflight? Then stick around for the second half of the show for our thoughts on V Rising so far.
Nick here, beating the heat with V Rising, where I've been kicking back, dipping my toes into the blood pool, and cracking open cold boys with the old ones.
Hi, I'm Josh, and I hope the developers of the new KOTOR don't choke on their aspirations.
We've got a surprise Justin. And my name is Andy. Welcome to Video Game Tango.
Systems online.
Or is it?
Weapons.
Yeah, it is.
No, it might be.
No weapons.
No
Josh, put it
weapons.
away. So, we've got video game news.
Yay!
Yeah.
Clap.
One clap.
We've got video game news. And then after the video game news, we're going to be talking V Rising. We've been playing V Rising with us and a few friends.
Games.
Yeah, we've been playing some video games.
Relatively new.
And we want to talk about it at length.
Yep. Never played video games before this last week, so I'm excited to share what I've done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear some V Rising, make sure you stick around for the latter half of the podcast. But for now, Josh, let's talk some Star Wars.
Yeah. And, well, I mean, honestly, it's a frequent thing with Star Wars. It's news that's disappointing. I mean, we remember, we remember almost a year ago now when all of a sudden at a PlayStation showcase, a very familiar score rose up and we got news of a KOTOR remake. Now, since that time, there have been some bumps along the way, we could say. Of the remake of our beloved game. Now, Asper, a company known mostly for making honestly a great port of this game that I played on my phone, was amazing.
The first KOTOR.
Yeah, it was great. They were rebuilding this thing essentially from the ground up. Now, everybody had a lot of concerns about that because it's a beloved RPG from a beloved series. And they've never done anything this large scale. And it's kind of starting to show because it's been indefinitely put on hold. Now, they had a lofty release goal of late 2022, which nobody, let's be honest, really believes. But now it's been moved to indefinitely held, and 2025 is looking like a realistic release date.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, in June, Asper produced what is called a vertical slice. Now, I actually had to look this up because I didn't know what the fuck this was. Now, a vertical slice is a benchmark across all functionality of the game. So story, combat, leveling up, stealth, anything that's going to be in the game, and it's a playable little thing. So after releasing this to LucasArts and Sony, two key directors were fired. So design director Brad Prince and art director Jason Miner were fired. No reason has been given on their LinkedIn.
After they gave this vertical slice.
After they gave this vertical slice, a week later they were fired.
Here's where we're at in the game. Okay, you're fired.
Yeah.
Essentially the kind of deal.
It's one thing to get that for like a programmer or designer or coder, but to be an art director and show off your game and get fired, that's gotta sting.
So my being a little worried about the development of one of my all-time favorite games has now gone from a little worried to near devastated. So I don't know. I had doubts as whether the game should have even been given to someone. Asper's great. They're good at what they did before, but to give them something so loved by the community, I don't know, man.
I don't know. It sounds like they were giving it love and attention,
Yeah, but I mean,
the franchise needs.
It needs, but experience.
My hope, not being a fly on the wall, is that Asper came in with some mediocre potato-looking stuff in an attempt to do a cash grab based off the KOTOR name, and the publishers were like, no, fuck you. This is a beloved game. You've done a terrible job. We're firing some people. We're restarting. Like, that's best case scenario, right? Because I will take a game that doesn't get released over a sequel that it is released that is garbage.
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
A sequel never removes your ability to play the original, but it carries a taint with it. We've had that happen a lot to games.
Yeah.
And I just rather they either completely restart or give up on it, and it can happen sometime in the future.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Lord of the Rings news.
Oh, is it Rings of Power?
No.
Oh.
Lord of the Rings Golem.
Oh.
Yeah. Forgot about this.
It's
game.
been delayed, quote, by a few months. So no official release date on Lord of the Rings Golem anymore.
Did they lose the ring?
Dude, who knows?
He's out
I'm
there
pretty sure
looking
that's
for
the entire story of it. So, on hold, at least another few months, maybe looking at a 2024 release, potentially Q1. But no official release date set now. It was slated to come out September 1st, which happened to be the day before Rings of Power came out. So they're really missing out on that double down.
Yeah, they really wanted that. I know they wanted that.
It's a little bit unfortunate, but to be honest, I mean, are there a lot of people looking forward to Golem? I don't know. It is another Lord of the Rings property. Maybe. I mean, if he's playing Golem, we'll see. It'd be nice to get some more gameplay footage of the game and see how it actually plays. But so far, all we know is that it's a stealth game featuring Golem in the Lord of the Rings universe trying to recover the ring. So
we talked about this before. If you have a short delay, something like 2 months, it means one of two things. There is some minor logistical problem that unfortunately needs to happen to have a smooth release, or two, the game is complete shit and they're buying as much time as possible to make it not complete shit.
Cyberpunk.
It's rare that there's some kind of medium weight cause for a very short delay.
Yeah.
Right? 2 months is nothing.
Yeah.
So we will see.
We'll see.
Yeah, it kind of does look like that. On to me.
Yeah.
On to you, sir.
I guess we get all of our sad news out of the way first. Actor David Warner, most known by me as the voice for antagonist John Irenicus in Baldur's Gate 2, has passed away at the age of 80. I think if you grew up playing Baldur's Gate, the voice immediately pops into your head. He did voicing for other Star Trek and other games, Descent 3, some Star Wars games. He was an actor in some Star Trek stuff. He's also in Titanic. But yeah, Irenicus's voice, is just that quintessential evil British, sorcerer king voice. And I was bummed to hear it, but I appreciate the work he did. And next wizard in my campaign, I will do my best to intimidate him poorly.
I mean, you ever
To imitate him.
To imitate him poorly, because there's no way I'm going to be able to pull off his voice.
I'm pretty sure you said intimidate, so I was like, you're late.
A dead man.
You're late.
Yep. You ever see somebody and you're like, oh yeah, they're British.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See it in their skull and their bones. For sure.
Oh.
Well, after that, I've got nothing but good news. Games I'm going to talk about.
Ooh,
they aren't delayed.
All right.
You want me to continue?
Yeah, let's do one more.
First one, I only heard about this a couple days ago. I saw a trailer, and then Rock, Paper, Shotgun did an article on it. There is a neat game coming out called The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow. This is a point-and-click game, which is going to throw off a lot of people. They've kind of come back recently in vogue, but it's rare to see a horror one. The creator dubs it, if he had to boil it down, Victorian Gothic horror. And this art style, immediately it's like, I just play the game for it. It's so unsettling. But yeah, kind of classic Cthulhu-esque. I don't know if the Cthulhu mythos is involved per se, but it's definitely along those lines. The big article is mostly talking about they're getting a lot of really good voice acting involved. And to have full voice acting in a point-and-click game is a really good selling point. It's been a long time since I've played a good point-and-click adventure. I play them every once in a while because the format tends to be a bit stale. But the idea of playing this, very horror Gothic Victorian style of game, I don't think I've played a real point-and-click adventure that pulled that off well.
Yeah.
So Excavation of Hobbs Barrow. As far as a release date goes, I don't think we have one yet. but it does look neat, and I'm looking forward to giving that one a shot.
Oh, the art looks really cool in that.
Yeah, the cat's terrifying.
And like, oh man, that horror's really been coming back in vogue, especially like personally lately. We're just talking about horror. So I mean, that's fun.
Oh yeah.
Now, I guess kind of leaning a little bit into that. You know how much we love our Polish-based game developers, right, guys? Well, there's a new group of them out there. This one is called Dark Passenger. It's a new Warsaw, Poland-based game studio. It's mostly staffed by former Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077 devs. And so they have a pitch for their first new game, for their first IP. So they don't really have a title out or anything for it yet. But what they, from their site, which is machine translated into English from what I assume is Polish.
Get read it off for
Good call.
Yeah, I'm going out on a limb there. The game they're building is an addictive dark world full of secrets, unusual characters, and conflicts set in the land of the rising sun. End quote.
Just Japanese Pepe Sylvia.
Yes. I think essentially what we're getting there. But we so what they're talking about releasing now is a kind of a Ghost of Tsushima, a game we talked about here previously on the pod. But I am for anything like, because I really liked Cyberpunk 77. Again, I picked it up a year later, after a lot of the things were fixed at a good price. So if I'm getting something Witcher style, something set like that in feudal Japan, that's like sitting down to a fine dinner. I am going to be there for a while, and it's going to be savory. So I'm always excited for new IP, but it's just a little taste of what was released, and it seems to be a new studio with a good bit of talent. So I want to look forward to talking about them more, hopefully, here.
For sure.
All right.
Next up in the news, Wrath of the Lich King has a release date. So Wrath of the Lich King Classic, we knew was coming soon, but it looks like it's going to be here in September. So September 26th, mark it on your calendars. Time to go back and play old games, if you're into that kind of thing. So at this point, probably not going to be jumping back in personally. Activision Blizzard hasn't shown enough progress for me to give them any more money. But, for those of us excited to not get Random Dungeon Finder in the release of Wrath of the Lich King Classic, you can absolutely play that come September 26th. Now, real quick.
Okay, sorry.
That comes on the heels of, we talked about it a couple podcasts ago, the release date for Dragonflight. It's got me a little concerned. The release for Dragonflight, because pre-orders started, is by the end of the year 2022. So imagining that they're going to be putting out two major World of Warcraft releases, one, the most beloved, probably, expansion of World of Warcraft, and one that is supposed to be the savior of modern World of Warcraft, within 3 months of each other.
Well, I mean,
it's a little bit worrying.
It is okay. So that's a heck of a schedule to keep up, honestly. Yeah. Thinking about that. But what was there a lot to do with the classic release here? I mean, not
a lot. No, you're right. I mean, it is effectively ported back over, right?
Right.
So Wrath of the Lich King, you can download the original Wrath of the Lich King or even any number of its iterations, depending on what patch, pretty much anywhere on the internet. I mean, it's hosted multiple places at this point, including private servers. Private servers use 3.35. It's known as probably the most well-balanced patch. It also had all the content from Wrath of the Lich King out, which is incidentally the patch that they're going to be launching for. As far as balance goes, content's going to be a little bit different. So they did have to do some stuff to make Wrath Classic work. Because they don't want to do all of the rebalancing they had to do during Wrath of the Lich King, they're putting out, as far as the balance goes, classes and characters, it's going to be 3.35 and all of the changes that had been made up to 3.35. but it's going to be releasing at a kind of every few months standard pace as far as the patches go. So day one, it's only going to be your leveling zones, your base dungeons and heroics, and Noxramas, which is the first raid of Wrath of the Lich King, and also the last raid of Classic, as it were. That's going to be all that's out. So it's going to be releasing, as far as content goes, the content cadence. It's going to be just every few months getting new content, while all the balancing has been effectively worked from the ground. For all intents and purposes, the best balance of the expansion. So, it's interesting. So they definitely have had to put some work into it, but it is a separate dev team. Who knows? Another thing that has people kind of scared about Dragonflight is the fact that they are bringing on a whole new crew from their recent acquisition. So in order to get those guys up and running and working on a World of Warcraft title, they've got to be brought up to speed as far as that's concerned. So there are definitely concerns. Who knows how it's going to work out? Is Dragonflight going to be the savior of WoW or not? Time will tell. But until then, you've got Wrath Classic coming in just a couple months.
I mean, so you were talking about playing without Dungeon Finder?
Yeah. So on release, there will be no Dungeon Finder.
Well, that seems awful.
You have to find a dungeon yourself.
Okay. So, I mean, that honestly, to me, that seems awful. Why would you want to do that? Whose idea was that?
You still haven't played Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah, no,
proper.
I mean, I know that's fair, but like we've been using Dungeon Finder when we play, and god damn it, is that effective? And
it's really convenient. One of the things that changes dramatically for you is you haven't experienced flying in the game. So flying changes your travel quite a bit. I mean, when you can look at your map, set a straight line as the crow flies to your next dungeon, get up, go take a bathroom break real quick, come back, and you're nearly at your dungeon or you're there. The experience isn't too bad getting to Wrath Dungeons. It's not as big of a world as Classic was. You have flying, so you don't have to navigate a ground mount. So it's
okay, fair enough. But I'm thinking about this, I guess, from my experience and not just what people are going to be coming into at this point. But if I didn't have a fast mount, I'd have to be running to those places.
Yeah.
On foot?
Yeah.
I'd spend the first half of my night getting to the place, and I hope to God I don't die.
Welcome to Classic WoW.
That's Classic WoW. And
okay.
To be fair, if you did start at level 1 to play Wrath of the Lich King, that is going to be your experience until you get to flying zones, is running to dungeons. That is true. Yeesh. So if you start a fresh character on Wrath of the Lich King Classic, you are going to have to play the semi-classic experience of Classic, running to dungeons, doing the classic leveling.
Yeah. All right.
It's as close as it gets, except for playing Classic, which is still available to play.
I got some bad news, Nicholas.
You guys are going to keep talking about WoW?
No, I accidentally spilled my Red Bull on the Vape Nation plate.
Oh, rude. Nick, you've got more news.
Yes, I do. So, more games that are coming out that look interesting. I was vaguely aware of Hard West, an XCOM mic that came out a handful of years ago, but some progress is being made on the sequel. Mildly weird West XCOM-like turn-based, grid-based tactical strategy game is doing some interesting things with the XCOM formula. I've talked about it before, but the major complaint with XCOM is its output randomness, the idea that you can choose your character's actions and setup, but the determination of whether they hit or miss with criticals, misses, everyone's got that 95% chance to hit. They remember that they missed. It's very frustrating. And the developers of Hard West 2 have leaned more into their bravado system and their luck system to make the game more deterministic and less RNG while still retaining that kind of XCOM feel. XCOM is known for punishing risky choices, not being efficient, not being slow. They attempted with XCOM 2 to give you side bonus quests in mission that had a timed requirement to finish them, trying to push the player to being less precise and diligent. but it kind of clashed with what XCOM wanted to be and had a lot of detractors. With this game, they have a bravado system where if a character kills an opponent, they just get all their action points back, all their stuff's reloaded, and heavily rewards the player making extremely risky, in-your-face, Wild West gunslinging choices. As opposed to taking cover behind that wall and having a 75% chance to hit, run out in the middle of the town at high noon and unload your revolver on everyone, and then you get another action to go put them into cover. The article was talking about how a guy managed to kill 6-7 enemies in a row, which is necessary because this game seems like it would be easy with that ability, but it accounts for that. And you can be swarmed quite easily if you're not pushing aggressively. A luck-based system in the game gives you a kind of a small benefit every time you miss or get hit. Your chances get better in your further actions as a way to kind of mitigate that RNG. But it's Weird West. I love Weird West. The opening mission is you doing a train robbery, but the train is owned by the devil himself. I mean, it's a neat idea. There's blood magic and alchemy and sorcery, and they're saying, there's frying pans and signs hanging on every corner. You got an enemy behind a barrel, you can ricochet a shot off a frying pan into them. This really, really neat stuff. I love Weird West setting. And the open beta is, I don't know if that's still out, but there is a pre-launch demo coming out tomorrow and going to August 1st. August 1st. So for a few days, you'll be able to play that if you want to give that a shot.
Oh, that looks sick.
I really love the art style.
But it does launch in a week. So it's a pre-launch demo. So for a week, you can try it, and then it'll come out.
Hell yeah.
I love XCOM style games. I've been playing Into the Breach nonstop since they had the update, and I want more.
Hell yeah. Especially fucking Weird West.
Yeah.
Dude, it's such an
sick setting.
underutilized genre these days, I feel like. That's why New Vegas is my favorite Fallout.
Yeah.
More. I want more. Like, that's, man. That's why I'm disappointed why I'm not getting an undead Red Dead Redemption 2, but that's okay. That's cool.
Goats.
Talking about a missed opportunity, Rockstar, but that's okay.
I will keep bringing you indie games, and eventually you will all forget about AAA games, and my life will be complete. And I can return to see.
So, like some AAAs.
It's the first game. It's already out. It's been out. It's done.
The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow?
No.
Hard West? Oh, yeah,
yeah.
That came out a while back. I never played it.
okay.
I have no opinion of it.
I mean,
this one's looking good. It's coming out in a week. We'll watch some reviews once it's out and see if it's got any major downsides. Otherwise, that might be my next game after V Rising. So
yeah, definitely.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Well, I've got some AAA news.
Oh,
okay.
It's actually a little bit less than AAA. So
the game is coming out.
The game Returnal.
Oh yeah.
It's been leaked
Returnal
that it's coming to PC.
Oh.
By way of getting leaked that it's coming, it's going to be compatible with a Stream Deck on launch. So, or Steam Deck rather. God, that's forever. That's going to be a problem. So Steam Deck on launch, Returnal's coming to PC. This is a game that this was the game that I want to buy PS5 for, to be honest. As far as like your bigger titles, PlayStation 5 exclusives, this is the one that kind of had me sold on the console. It's gorgeous. The gameplay loop looks like it's right up my alley.
It's like a over-the-shoulder Risk of Rain.
Over-the-shoulder Risk of Rain, yeah it's roguelite. Yeah, and it looks like a lot of fucking fun. So
look like a lot of fun,
and it's gorgeous. So I can't wait to play this on PC, but also Steam Deck. Which, speaking of Steam Deck, you guys ever heard of a game called Halo?
Set the sequel to The Ring, that horror movie.
Yeah.
Close, but no cigar. So it's got this guy, Master Chief.
It's that show on Paramount.
Oh, please don't talk about that. So I'm, as much as I love to hate on that show, I hate that show. Halo Infinite is now playable with some workarounds.
Fantastic news.
With some workarounds on the Steam Deck, and I think that's super cool. So,
isn't Infinite the newest one that like shit the bed and everyone hates it?
Not everyone hates it. A lot of people really dig the multiplayer. The single player,
fun,
the campaign is fine for what it is. I'm not into open world personally, so my take on Infinite isn't isn't super great. But I enjoyed as much as I could play of it. But open world just doesn't do it for me.
Which Halo is the one that's had all the fucking problems? Is it this one, like there's no campaign or no co-op or the...
There's no co-op.
Okay.
Not yet. Co-op was supposed to come out March of this year, and it still keeps getting delayed. I can understand why, because the game kind of runs like ass for the...
I can't. They've been putting co-op on Halo games since they came out.
But I can, based like just on a technological standpoint, because this game does not run well on hardware that should run it really well.
They should have made a better game.
That's what I'm saying. It's poor optimization.
Okay.
However, despite poor optimization, you can put it on its lowest settings, play it on Steam Deck. Now, in order to do so, you do have to sideload Proton GE. It's a Windows alternative with compatibility layer for Steam games. But you can get it working, which I don't give a fuck that Halo Infinite works on the Steam Deck. What I do want to talk about is what happens when somebody like Valve, big-ass gaming company, puts out a console and says, hey, you bought it. Do what you want with it.
Do what you want with the console?
Yes. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Cool, so what this is doing is this is showing what can happen if you just give the gaming community hardware and say, go do a thing with it. This is yours now. You can get things running natively on the game like Halo Infinite through just a couple of modifications that anybody that's relatively tech savvy can do. And I mean, we're already modding our games. This wouldn't be a hard thing for most of us to do. And it's, while it's not my game, I want to be able to. It is. Yeah. I mean, just the fact that you're able to play games that were never meant to be played on this console is awesome to me. Yeah. Really appreciative of what they're doing, and hopefully that's. I talked about my excitement for the Steam Deck, and then it launched, and it wasn't as big as people were hoping, but more and more keeps coming of it, and it's turning out to be like the emulator's sanctuary. It's like one of the best pieces of hardware for emulation now. The people that are coding emulators and reworking ROMs are making them ultra playable on this handheld, and the handheld experience for emulation is awesome. I already love the little handheld emulator that I have, but if I could have one with a larger screen that was, that much more, powerful and
makes me think of the
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what, if that had actually really taken off, then we could have gotten like a real good Android alternative for emulation and, kind of third-party console gaming.
Yeah. I've talked about this. It just baffles me that everyone's got a phone in their pocket and the game's available on mobile. 99% of them are shit. Like, there's such a opportunity that is being missed every day that goes by that someone doesn't say, let's make good games for that thing that everyone has. Yeah. And the more and more as these smartphones get better, they're essentially they're just handheld. I mean, why have a Game Boy? Yeah. For the first party titles, that would be it, right? Like it's a Nintendo games. That's the only reason you would play it on a Game Boy. Yeah. It's like my phone can do. I got Game Boys on my phone. Yeah. Right. So
I'm just
exciting.
I'm really excited for the potential that the Steam Deck brings. If anything, I hope that your Nintendos, your Microsofts, and your Sonys can take a lesson from this and give gamers just a little bit more freedom to do with the hardware that they purchased.
Nintendo shareholders will never let that.
I honestly don't see it happening, but I mean, we are seeing some pretty cool things coming from Xbox. As far as compatibility goes, cross-play and things like that. So we're taking steps in the right direction there. But the Steam Deck, it's kind of a game changer, and I really hope it takes off in the next year or two.
You know what changes the game?
What's that?
Giving a rollerblade or a rocket launcher.
Yeah.
We talked about nope, you're not allowed to talk. Sorry. We talked about Roller Drone the other day. It was on the Steam demo list. I think we were going through. It looked a bit boring. The trailer looked like it needed a lot of work done. But since they've had what looks like a little bit of HUD update, and after an article I read on here espousing how much the reviewer loved it, I'm warming up to it. Somewhere between my friend Pedro and Tony Hawk Pro Skater. It's a neat concept. It looks like they're smoothing things out. And it's almost seems to play like something like N plus. I mean, I was getting these N plus vibes from it. It's an old Flash game that no one's going to remember. But yeah, you've got a lot of stuff going on. Lasers tracking you, rocket launchers, all this stuff. But you have bullet time, and we've all done bullet time a million ways. But it seems necessary in the harder levels of this game. They purposely throw too much at you for you to find the times when bullet time is going to keep you alive. One neat thing that I liked, to reload any of your weapons, you have to do skate tricks.
Oh, that's sick.
It is required to keep going, so it creates this gameplay loop, this flow of going back and forth between trying to do really cool tricks to get prime reloads to dumping all your guns and killing people. And yeah, it looks like it actually has came together really well. And I am surprised to see this one making so much progress. There was, this came from a handful of GIFs posted on Twitter a handful of years ago. Some just prototype of a guy skateboarding around on a polygon field with a shotgun, and it's rare that those kind of little indie titles ever get big. But after it got picked up by the company that I can't remember off of the top of my head, Roll 7, looks like it's going to come together.
Dude, honestly, I love little gimmicks. As far as doing like the mandatory stuff, like reloading your weapons, being able to do it in a cool way, I enjoy that. So if doing tricks reloads your weapons and keeping score multiplier, boosts your damage and shit like that,
I love a score-based game.
I love that shit. Mm-hmm. Give me like Metal Hellsinger. That's why I liked that from the demo that I played. Gears of War, the reload mechanics that you got in that, and God, I love that. I eat that shit up. That's the kind of thing. Those are the little touches that make a good game great.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a little something extra for your standard FPS, because otherwise, you're just skating around with guns, right? Yeah. But you have to do tricks to reload your guns. And, a basic bitch ollie is only going to get you a fucking bullet, whereas if you do a kick flip McTwister or whatever the fuck, you got special bowlers or something. I don't know.
If you can gain an opportunity to respawn by doing a Christ air, I'm going to buy it the moment it comes out. Right.
Sure, yeah. No, that's fantastic. I like hearing it, because watching the release trailer without any real gameplay, like it was a very unfortunate trailer because it didn't highlight anything cool about the game. What we got was a bunch of explosions and somebody on a pair of roller skates.
It just kind of started in media res. You weren't really sure what you were supposed to be thinking about when you're watching it, other than, okay, you're skateboarding around with guns. Okay, neat concept, but where's the meat?
Yeah.
But knowing now that it's in this, threat management genre of game where high score possible, it's a tried and true genre. I think it's going to have legs.
Oh, dude, this makes me feel like being back in the bowling alley, 12 years old, like trying to do like a fucking just a badass art. It's like, it's watching the score go up. You want to put your initials in at the end. Yeah.
Okay.
When you were 12 and you had a Uzi and you were
No. Just like an arcade style shooter, just
definitely
trying to get that score multiplier. You want to leave your initials at the end,
Mm-hmm. Dude, being able to leave your initials on place and then you just leave, like drop the mic. Like, my name's going to be up there a while.
I was always a little too lazy. Sometimes I would do jam because that's a play on my initials, but most of the time it was just AAA, and then I left it at that. And then I'd come back and it'd be like, that's my score, and people would be like, yeah, sure, okay, right. And then that's when I changed things. But so I think that's it for the news, isn't it, boys?
Other than talking about V-Rising.
Yeah, let's talk about V-Rising for a little bit.
How much time we got?
We got some time.
Okay. Who's opening?
You.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You've been playing the shit out of this game, so I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. In a nutshell, I would be much more frustrated with this game if I did not have control over all the different server settings that are available.
Sure.
The fact that we are playing, for the majority of the time at the moment, 3 to 5 people at a time in a game that's somewhere between Ark and Valheim with lots and lots of grinding. I have bumped up drop rates and all these things multiple times, slowly incrementing them up. And we're still, we have to outkit kit out 5 people.
Yeah.
It would have been very, very difficult to enjoy this game with the amount of grind it has. But because that's not a problem, I've really been enjoying it. So like I said, somewhere between Ark and Valheim, the flavor's on point. It has a really neat progression mechanic. It's not new, but it's something I love, where every little building or new spell or whatnot is locked behind a different boss. There's dozens and dozens of bosses. They start out pretty simple. We fought one really overtuned boss that I don't think would have been nearly as hard if we'd been doing it solo.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you have to mention also that we did start out at an inappropriate level for the boss. I think we were gear level 21.
We were
under
it.
Yeah.
And then we were about the same gear level the second time when we lost. But it's really fun. I love grindy little survival games. In the off days when you guys aren't playing, I'm, getting resources, doing a full base build. I've rebuilt the base 3 times now.
You've done beautiful work. You've done beautiful work.
Wait till you see a new one. It definitely needs decoration. Somebody decorated the crap out of the base. I really appreciated it, but I had to tear most of it down. Is this our footage?
No.
Oh, okay. It looks like our base. But yeah, it plays like a little Diablo action RPG. You get usually at least one new spell or ability every time you kill a boss. So if you want to progress and unlock more stuff, you got to go fight bosses. Lots of neat little mechanics. I've got some minor quibbles, but
Sure.
For the most part, I'm really enjoying it. And playing cooperative is distinctly different feel than playing solo. I've got about 50-50 time solo and cooperative play now under my belt. I think they both work well.
Yeah.
Some things that are a lot easier with multiple people. Some things where, like bosses, where it's much more difficult. But
I assume that would be the case, because as soon as I realized the bosses scale with the amount of people that you bring into it,
including the ads they summon and whatnot.
The number of ads, but also the health pool and the damage they deal, right? So they're dealing more damage the more people are there, meaning that, like, in some cases, we were going up against bosses that nearly one-shot you with an ability.
Yeah.
Whether we were at appropriate level or not, that's kind of neither here nor there. But these guys were doing a little bit too much damage. There were a couple bosses that felt overtuned. One of which I really enjoyed. It was the dude with a big ass shield.
The first real hard.
The
fight.
real, yeah.
Oh, the Bandit King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they call that? A litmus test or There's phrase that's like it's a skill check.
Skill check.
Right. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. And then Nicholas was a gear check.
Yeah.
So far, I'm really enjoying the game. It definitely gives me pretty standard survival game mechanic vibes. The combat, I was a little bit lukewarm on to begin with. It is getting better. The more abilities that you get, the better, right?
Yeah, it starts out very sparse.
It does. I do wish that you could bind more abilities. You're limited to just 3 active abilities at once, or maybe it's 4 if I think about it.
With the ult,
kind of
it
4.
is 4.
Yeah. Well, you have your space bar, which is going to give you some kind of dash forward. But there are multiple different dashes, right?
And there's 2 slots for spells and 3 slots for weapon special abilities.
Yeah, and the weapons, they bring their own special abilities too. So I guess, there's a little bit of variety there. But each of your weapons shares a cooldown. So if you swap weapons right after having used the weapon ability, you still have to wait on the cooldown. Mm-hmm. I just wish there was a little bit more interactivity. I now know that we're capped kind of where we're at now. It's choosing between abilities, selecting those before fight, and then going into it. And that's going to be your ability
all
selection.
The weapon abilities, but we still we're I don't even know if we're halfway through all the spells available.
Yeah, I'd say probably based on what I looked in the journal, we're about halfway.
Yeah, getting close.
That said, you're capped on how many you can be using actively at one time. So, I do wish there was a little bit more there, but I am having a lot of fun. Even like combat may be one of my favorite things about this game. I know it sounds like I'm a little down on the combat, but I do enjoy it. I just wish I had more buttons to push, really, at the end of the day. Because I like...
You're used to playing WoW. You've got 20 different abilities.
Yeah, and I think that would raise the skill ceiling a little bit, where I feel like I'm going to be hitting that quicker than I'd like.
Yeah. One thing to consider is this game is designed with PvP in mind first.
Yeah.
Currently, the only real endgame content is PvP.
Yeah.
And that limiting factor of essentially 5-6 abilities at a time is there to bring some kind of constraints to that PvP combat.
For sure. It does make it easier to balance for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being able to legitimately switch weapons on the fly in between abilities and attacks means that in PvP, that skill ceiling is there, not only with the ability to cancel your attacks, like there's a cancel button, so if you're in mid animation, you can cancel it and swap to something else.
Yeah.
That's a skill fucking ceiling thing.
Sure.
But yeah, as far as PvE goes, I totally feel what you're saying. It's especially noticeable playing single player when I'm just fighting a boss and I watch him get his patterns down. And, you know, I could be switching between weapons, but, you know, it's more important just to memorize the boss pattern like Dark Souls, take your time, be safe, you know. So it'd be interesting to see how PvP works out. I've watched a couple endgame fights and it looks pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't...
It reminds me a lot of Lost Ark PvP, having watched some of the PvP combat. Very, very similar feel. Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I'm doing all right. I do all right with PvE combat here, but I don't know how. I don't think I would fare well in PvP combat. Because I get a little, like, the more antsy I get, the more mushy my fingers get. So
yeah, you know, I've noticed Andy and Mike and I have a lot of experience with action RPGs, and you and Justin don't. Doesn't mean you're bad at the game, but there's a noticeable difference there. And this is something that it feels a lot like WoW combat in a way, mostly because of the HUD and the UI and the way your spells look, but it's much more timing and skill shot based, and that just takes practice. You know, it takes practice to know when and how to use your dashes and to not just smash all your buttons and use up all your abilities right away, because then you're leaving yourself high and dry, you know.
Honestly, for me, it feels almost exactly like WoW combat with fewer button presses.
And it's the fact that there's a bunch of skill shots that you have to make.
Yeah, I mean, there are, but there are also when you play Warrior, right, in World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
So it does remind me a lot of, like, playing a Warrior in PvP. It's pretty interactive and a lot of fun. That's where I wish there were more buttons, because I get more buttons in World of Warcraft, right? And there are certainly more skill shots in this than there would be playing like a Warrior in World of Warcraft. But I actually play this game like I would World of Warcraft. I hold down my right click to always keep changing my camera angle. Whereas you're playing differently. You keep the camera relatively static and you play it more like a Diablo.
It's rare. Yeah, it's rare I rotate the camera, because with the mouse, you can aim in any direction between attacks instantly, right? You just have to be using your mouse to do that, which is its own kind of skill.
You can do that while you're holding the right click. You just don't get you get the animation, but as long as you hold the cursor in front of the player character, then that's where it's going to land, is where the cursor is when you hold right click.
But then I'm having to move the mouse to aim my attacks, as opposed... Well, I mean, I guess I'm moving mouse either way. It just seems like an extra necessary step to me. But again, I come at this like from a Diablo angle, not from a WoW angle.
For me, it's a total comfort thing.
I'm also using jump in there. I'm also using right click to try and hold that cursor right in front of me. But sometimes, like, I'll let it go because I'll be doing a thing or my hand will slip, and all of a sudden that cursor's off in the other direction, and I didn't fucking notice it. My hand gets back into position, and all of a sudden, like, my character's swinging fucking behind her head and facing the other direction. I'm like, this is not fucking helpful.
So what Josh is talking about is when you're holding your right click, it allows you to free move the camera and keep looking in the direction that you might be traveling or fighting in combat. But the game remembers where you have the cursor, and where the cursor is when you hold right click is where your character is always going to be facing as far as combat goes, right? So if like in World of Warcraft, I usually keep my cursor just to the right of my character on screen. Can't do that here, because then that means all of your stuff is going to be aimed to the right.
That's where my shit's been going wrong, because I keep it like it's on, like you said, it's kind of falling into that WoW pattern. So I'm going to keep talking about WoW there, but I don't know. It's taken a little adapting, so I feel more comfortable the more I play it, like you said.
I would honestly recommend you try to play it the way I think the game is expecting you to play it and the way I'm playing it. Because if you are constantly rotating the camera, one thing you're doing is you're shifting your perspective while you're fighting enemies who are doing all these attacks with different animations. On top of that, like you're saying, if you're not keeping up on that right mouse button aiming and your finger slips off or you get stressed in a moment, now you're missing shots due to a meta problem. The fact that, you're not using the mouse correctly. If you just aim with the mouse and not the button, it might take a little bit of getting used to, but I don't really miss attacks, because you just have to keep your mouse pointed at the enemy. It's much easier than I feel like rotating the entire camera to aim your character. So just, I don't know, just give it a shot.
Yeah.
I can show you what I mean later.
Yeah, it'd be worth trying out. I already know that I'm much more, but it comes with experience playing these kinds of games. I've got my gameplay locked, right? I can absolutely play a Diablo-like, but because this has a free-moving camera, I find it much more comfortable to play the way I have been. So it works for me really well. I definitely feel like I've locked in the combat.
Before we get too into the weeds, it is not fully out yet.
Yeah.
It has a surprising number of quality life features that I didn't expect it to have, and then it has some weird problems that you would think the game wouldn't have.
Yeah.
One example is it being a grindy game of collecting materials, a very neat sorting button called compulsively count. You're a vampire, where any item in the container that you also have in your inventory, when you click that, it will send all those items in your inventory to the container. Yet the only way to split a stack is by constantly splitting it in half. You can't just like take 10 out of a stack of 30. You have to split it to 15 and then 7 and then 4 and add them together to get 10 and put the rest back. So it's weird. It's like really neat quality of life button, but then the standard features aren't there yet.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's a bit weird. And I also, so one of my least favorite things about survival crafting games is keeping shit organized.
Logistics.
It is. I fucking hate that shit.
I love it.
I love the crafting. I love the adventuring to get materials. Yeah. I love all the rest of the core gameplay. I fucking hate resource management. Hate it. Yeah. Hate that shit.
I spent 2 hours last night resorting our inventory. To me, it's like organizing your Magic the Gathering cards, right? It's like it's just this total zen thing where, I know I've got no other distractions. I don't need to be doing anything else. I'm just going to sit here and get everything perfectly lined up and logistically efficient. And then when you're done, it's like, but I can totally see why that's frustrating for other people because it's not gameplay. It's not fun, right? It's a chore more or less. But yeah, the base building is surprisingly good. Thankfully, there's a grid. It's a pretty granular grid. You've got a little room to move around. They solved an interesting problem by making a problematic feature. The game, if there's any object, a floor tile, a lamppost, a workshop, that is vaguely within distance of the thing you're trying to move or place, the game says no, you need to move everything away from this before I let you move it. Yeah. And it's frustrating when you're getting to learn it, but you realize what that means is it's almost impossible for things to clip through one another. It's almost impossible to get your character stuck or make an area where you can't get to. And the game's like, these are very set in stone rules. And once you learn them, you're like, okay, I can understand why they did it this way. But it's very frustrating when you're just trying to move a thing and it's like, no, that lamppost, it's 6 feet over there. It's in the way. And you're like, oh, okay, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, because you get that problem a lot in any kind of base building game with grids is that you get clipping or weird graphic errors because you're trying to line these things up because they give you so much leeway in how you lay things out. This game says, no, we're just nipping that problem in the bud, do things in a row, in order, one at a time, give yourself room, and it worked out pretty well.
My only complaint with the building would be the UI. I think there could bones. Yeah, I think it just could be more efficient. If there's something that gets me fucking hard is an efficient UI when it comes to like building and resource management. And you brought up some quality of life things, the compulsively compulsive counting. Great feature. I love it.
It means after any kind of a run, you get back to base, and when you're doing your quote unquote town run, you just walk from one chest to another, just sideways, and you just compulsively count, boom, 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 and it just auto drops and sorts all your items. And when you've gone through all your chests, your inventory is empty. Yeah, you don't have to manually drop stuff off. But then, like we were talking about, not being able to choose how much out of a stack you want drives me nuts, right?
Yeah, that's that to me is a little wonky having to divide down everything. But I mean, compulsively count and then choose how many you want little thing would be nice too. But like you said, the game's not fully out. I didn't realize that it plays.
Oh yeah, it's gonna
like
they've got more
a
content
dream,
to add.
considering that it's not fully out yet. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple server side things that we've had issue with, like the inability to teleport the other night, just because like we needed to reset the server.
Oh yeah. There's a in-game warning. It's like our servers, our game still has problems. If you leave the game running too long, we recommend you save and restart the server. And it's to be expected. It's honestly to be more expected in a like beta-ish version of a game like this.
For sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
One time out of about a week of playing, I haven't had any crashes to desktop, any freezes, and yeah, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, it's been as far as bugs go, I haven't really encountered any personally. But I have been sticking mostly to combat and adventure.
I would feel I find I've occasionally gotten stuck on a couple of things where like I don't feel like I should have been stuck on that thing.
Clip like the root of a tree, especially on your horse.
There is some weird geometry.
It's especially on the horse where I'm like, God damn it, why am I stuck on this fucking? That's stupid. But
speaking of double control methods, you're talking about in combat right mouse button for camera or not. The horse has turn left, turn right AD steering, this classic kind of horse steering, which is not intuitive, right? It steers like a car, really. But then Josh found the other day, when you press the auto run button and you're holding the right mouse button down, now the horse just is locked to your camera and you can just rotate the camera.
Yeah.
It's fantastic if all you need to do is get somewhere. But like I've been trying to find high blood NPCs to gather, and I recently unlocked ability. It gives you vision so you can see their numbers. Real quick side note, it puts this blood filter over your vision and darkens everything. It's like impossible to see, but you get to see the class and percentage of everybody as you're running by. But trying to do that while you're auto running and like dodging shots while you can also barely see where you're going. I don't know why they put this weird filter over your vision when you use that ability. It's really, really bad.
There are a few filters, like the low health filter is obnoxious.
It's a bit much.
A little flashing red on the sides of your screen is more than enough of an indicator. Taking up like a third of the total real estate of your screen is a bit fucking much, with tendrils coming in closer and closer to the middle. It's a bit much.
Yes, I know I'm dying.
Right. There are a few things that I would change, mostly about the UI and UX, just to tighten it up a bit. But for a game that's in like version 0.55, it's feeling really good.
Yeah,
it seems really promising. I mean, I am enjoying the game as it is. If this was the game as it was put out, I would enjoy it as it is.
Yeah,
I wouldn't think.
$20.
I know.
I've gotten $20 out of this.
Absolutely, I wouldn't think at all like, oh well, it's early access. I've seen really none of that. I mean, this does feel like a complete game. That there are some things that I would change about it, like little minor quibbles, but it does feel like a complete game.
Two things I wanted to add before we get done topic. The real grind of the game doesn't really show up until you get to about where we're at. We're about halfway through tier 3 gear, and you'll unlock the ability to have servants and prisoners. Every enemy besides undead has a blood type and a blood strength. The strength is a percentage out of 100. The type is warrior, rogue, beast, all these other things. And you can essentially capture them like sinful Pokemons and either make them into servants and send them on missions to gather resources for you, or turn them into prisoners so you can drain them of their blood to have their blood type as a refreshing consumable. Because normally you go find a person while you're like, 80% rogue, you get them, and then you get to get free critical hits and better melee attacks for a while, but then you eventually run out of that blood, and there's no way to refill it.
And I want to talk about the mechanic when you're done.
Well, with the prisoners, that's how you refill it, right? Again, I've got quibbles with it, but it definitely lends, if you want more grind, and if you get the game and you get 10 hours in, you're like, man, the grind isn't really that bad. I'm just warning you that there's potential if you want to sit there and hunt those 100% guys, which they themselves aren't always best in slot. They have a random 15 to 25% roll at the end. You can really grind those out. But it's very difficult solo. You have to get a NPC down to 30% health, dominate them, and carry them all the way back to base and hope they don't get accidentally looked at too hard by an enemy. Otherwise, they just die. And that's happened more than 50% of the time I've tried to bring back high-level guys.
Oh, yeah. There's almost always an alpha wolf, like, right outside of our base. And
it could just be a dude with a crossbow that's trying to shoot you on your horse.
Yeah.
It's a neat mechanic. But I think the most important thing that I love is they have managed to set up the gameplay and mechanics in such a way that the immersion is there.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you another game where the moment I saw a nun, I got scared.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh shit, that's a cathedral. There's nuns in there. They have staffs and God. And I'm like, wow, I really am a vampire. You know, you're sneaking from shadow to shadow. You can't wait for nighttime. There's a blood moon. You go and, terrorize a village. But during the day, just the idea of the garlic. There's these, areas
oh my
protected
God,
by
I learned about garlic.
Yeah, and it throws this green mist on your UI HUD, and you're like, what's going on? You're like, oh, I can't even be in here. Like, I'm getting stacking debuffs until you're this frail little bitch. And the whole idea of, like, prowling around a town trying to find, like, your way in.
Yeah.
The mechanics really support that immersion.
Yeah,
they
do. They do. I mean, just the sunlight mechanic in itself supports the immersion. I mean, you can't be out in the sun for too long, otherwise you start taking an immense amount of damage.
Quite obvious. Well, yeah, you burst into flames after about 2 seconds.
Which is really cool. Yeah. But the blood mechanic, I really love that as far as like a combat mechanic goes.
Yes. Yeah, being able to choose your class by who you feed on, and then it's not set in stone. You can go drain another creature and try out that one.
But then you get into... So I got a 100% brute, which gave me some really, really great stats. So I'm 100% brute blood, which... the more pure the blood of the thing that you drain, the more stacking buffs you get for combat.
Yeah, it's not a linear bonus. It's the difference between 99 and 100% is like
it's huge.
30%.
Yeah, because you get an additional 30% to all those all those stats that it lists previously. So, I had a 100% brute that I drained. So it gives me a lot of really, really strong combat bonuses. But going in and jumping into combat and going fucking ham and willy-nilly is still not an option, because when I do that, I get hit. When I get hit, I lose health. When I lose health, I have to drain my blood pool, which is draining over time already. I have a limited time to use all of this newfound power. So it's like a borrowed power mechanic with detriment to your gameplay as well. Like, suddenly you're like, despite being really powerful, you're really careful in combat. It makes you hyper aware of any damage you might be taking, because that is less time that you get with your bonus stats, which I think is a really cool mechanic. I've been digging the shit out of that.
That's ingenious.
Yeah,
I didn't put that together until you laid that out. But
it has a bit of a Witcher feel in the sense that you can go fight a boss at any time. You can eat a rat, be frail, and just go try to fucking get good and not get hit, right? Or you can go hunt for a high blood specimen, grab that 100% brute, go back, collect a bunch of flowers, make a holy resistance potion for that guy's one holy attack. You can make a strength buff potion. You can make sure that you've got your weapon type that does enough damage to that particular enemy. You choose a loadout of your skills and spells that help counter that enemy's ability. That first vampire hunter, I had to swap up my setup twice because, solo it was okay, but I'd get too greedy. And he had a couple moves that, like, he jukes you. And I got like twice. I'm like, I completely deserved for that to happen. And being able to really, if you want to take your time and prepare for a battle and go in there and just blow their nuts up, you can.
Sure, absolutely.
But the game doesn't require you to.
It does not.
Like, at any time, all the bosses are out there. Some are just patrolling around. You just go fight them whenever you want. And
I love that fact. I'm looking forward to the eventual no-level speed runs that people are going to be doing.
I've already seen a few
basic gear.
Boss fights.
I'm looking forward to that kind of thing, because that when you get a game that you can beat purely on your own skill, I always appreciate that. I think that's always a good thing. Elden Ring did it. We're seeing that in V Rising. I love that kind of thing. So being able to just go out and confront the game's end boss if you want to, because you can. It's
kind of fun.
Good luck. I love that.
Yeah, gear level definitely has a lot of weight. Your level of your character is dependent entirely on the eye level of your gear. So if you go try to fight a boss that's 20, 30 eye levels above you, you're just going to be doing chip damage. And unless you're on fucking point, he's eventually going to hit you and you're going to eventually lose.
The second time we killed that bandit thief, way easier the second time. No, I mean, obviously we knew the mechanics going in, so nothing new there. But bringing a couple friends in that hadn't done the fight yet, making sure that they get all the goodies that come with killing that boss. The fight the second time was way easier. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that when I got hit, it didn't really matter. It was fine. Suddenly we've outgeared this guy by like 10 gear levels. So now we're, 30, 40% more powerful than we were the last time we went in there, and we kind of just squashed that boss.
It is us with the high-powered finances.
And that's always cool, too, is the ability to take on a boss at any time. You really could get over-geared for a lot of this stuff. Now, there are some bosses that are required to be killed in order to unlock some of it.
You need to kill the bosses to make certain progression.
Yeah, but, there are a lot of bosses where you don't. They give you new materials for your
They might give you the recipe to make a particular thing you need, or you can just go farm that mat by going out and killing NPCs and collecting their loot, right? Which is nice. One nice thing I think that's really neat about having 50, 60, 80 bosses is you have the problem they might start feeling samey, but they also gives them the room to play around. Some of the bosses, like the Silver Mine guy, don't stand in the fire bosses. There's just every attack is putting a ground effect that you need to dodge, and other ones are single target juking stuff like the Vampire Hunter.
One was chasing old lady.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to spoil things. The old lady fight is fantastic. Some people really, really hated it because they missed the whole point of it. But I loved it. I loved the old lady fight.
It was fantastic.
Taylor. And it's really, really neat to have that opportunity where they can go back and forth between, someone that's like kind of half AoE, half single target, and the next one's all single target. I had one where they had different forms they turned into. So you've got different mechanics to learn, or they summon ads, it's neat. And I think, I really think the later bosses are going to kick our shit in. I think playing 4 or 5 people, we're going to have to do, like you would in WoW, you go do the fight over and over again to practice it. Because
Jinkies,
I'm okay with wipes.
Split up.
Yeah.
We just got to be ready for them.
Yeah.
Well,
now, I would say the number one thing, though, about V Rising is, boy, is he getting me wet for new Valheim content.
For sure.
Just want to finish that there.
If I had to choose between 2 games, I would probably choose Valheim. Valheim is my favorite of the 2. Most of it having to do with the theme and the camera.
Yeah.
I do prefer the third person kind of over the shoulder combat more than I do the top down ARPG style.
I wouldn't be surprised if this game's going to get modded with camera options.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I've already seen, there's already mods coming out for it. Game's not even fucking out yet.
That would be super cool. Yeah, I'm into it. Well, gentlemen, I think we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We went a little bit long, but, V Rising is a great game.
That's our style.
Tooth.
Yeah.
Hey.
All right, guys. Well, make sure you come back next week. We're going to have more Video Game Tango. Interesting thing is, Balcony Time podcast got taken down. The last 4 episodes. Yeah, you weren't there when I was telling Josh the other night, but so we got hit with a content claim. It's a false one because there's no ongoing theme that says that, no, we didn't use anybody else's content for any of these episodes except for
who claimed it.
I don't get to see that because we're not partners.
Oh.
So I know we got content claimed. We did not get a strike issued, but we did get content claimed. So I took those episodes down. I'm scrubbing through them. I find no similarities that would justify a company going after 4 episodes.
Some bot.
I think it's some bullshit. So I'm trying to figure that out as much as I can. That we're little, we don't have contacts at YouTube. I'm gonna just try posting them up again one at a time. Hopefully they don't get taken down. But because I removed them from the YouTube, I removed them from the audio only podcast as well, just so we didn't have any. I want to re-release them at the same time again.
Gotcha.
So if you see episodes that you've already seen coming out,
that's what that is.
listen to them again.
Yeah.
Because they're that good. But
absolutely.
Don't be worried.
Put it up on YouTube, put it at half speed, mute it, let it run while you're doing your chores. Because if you watch a video at half speed, that's giving us 2 views per per view.
Well, see, okay, so I'll just render it at double the speed. That way, if you watch it at half speed,
the audio quality is going to be shit, but you
100%,
essentially you're giving us 2 views.
2 views.
And watch time is very, very important to the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, it's very important. Although we do about 2 hours of content a week, so I think we're pleasing the algorithm as long as people are sticking around. So just a heads up, you're going to be seeing old Balcony Time podcast episodes coming out. As soon as I figure out the problem, I'm going to also just test them, put them up, and see if they get flagged again. If not, we're in business.
Pepsi of VGT or Balcony Time.
BTP.
BTP.
So just wanted to give you a heads up. Those will be coming out soon. I'm not sure exactly when. I might just be doubling up on Balcony Time podcasts for the next couple of weeks. We'll see. I also have to consider that we have a limited storage for our podcast host, so I can't just upload them all at the same time. So those will get re-uploaded when they can be, as long as we have storage. So maybe a couple episodes at the end of this month, a couple episodes at the end of the next month. We'll see. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening and watching.
Love you.
Yeah, we'll see you at the same tango time, same tango place.